Naji, we got Keeley on the line. What do you want to ask her?
How did you guys go about vetting people and finding the right folks that had that experience based on what the business kind of calls for?
For us, we're looking at it from a leadership perspective, and we had operations, like people on site running tractors, right? Your on-site crews. Like, we need leadership from a higher level because Mason and I need to be out there selling grapes and schmoozing with the wineries, right? But we need somebody that's overseeing all these vineyard blocks on a day-to-day management of making sure that these vines are taken care of. So we spent a lot of time, and this is true when I was in corporate hiring salespeople, I had this mantra: hire slow, fire fast.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different than everything else out there. I bring together a new and an experienced investor on each episode, and I let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered. So if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably will have the exact same questions. Now, before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and that little bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Very excited for today's show. We have two amazing people on the line with us, and second time guest, Keeley Hubbard is our experienced investor again, and first time guest, Naji H. Kelley. So guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Keeley, you're up first. So how's it been going?
It's been busy, but everybody's busy.
Yeah.
Grateful for all the fun things going on. It's always good to see you again.
Always good to see you too. Yeah, it's been a little bit. I know we've seen each other at conferences recently, but I've been to so many that it's hard to remember which one. I think best ever was the last time we saw each other.
Yes. So, they all run together.
They do. But it is a lot of fun. But anyway, you were on, 2 years ago with our good friend, Melanie McDaniel. So thanks for coming on for a second time. I appreciate that.
Yes. I mean, I just love how you connect people. It was so awesome to meet Melanie and now Naji. So I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. So let's do this. Let's start talking about you. So tell us about yourself, where you came from, how you got into the commercial real estate space, wherever you want to start.
Well, I escaped corporate. I'll say that I escaped corporate in 2017, built a big career. I've been in sales for 18 years and, saw a quote that said, I got to the top of the mountain and I didn't like the view. And, I thought that was it for me. And so I left because my passion is sales coaching, and the higher you climb in corporate, you're just in meetings all day and you're not really spending time with, in my mind, what the needle mover is, which is my salespeople. So I left to start my own coaching firm, worked with business owners and even some capital raisers, and I love it. And then when I left, my dad was leaving the financial markets. He's a, trader, Forex futures options. He was like, I'm getting into real estate. I need your help. And, he knows my sales background, raising capital. I've been raising capital since 2015 in the options and bonds market. But that started our journey. We got into multifamily, bought a 7-unit brownstone in Chicago, very quickly realized this is going to be hard to scale. So we found this wonderful world of syndication. We've done 2 large multifamily, 3 properties, but 2 large syndications in Lubbock, Texas. And then we got into agriculture. You can syndicate anything. So life is
you can
wild
syndicate
ride.
anything. Yeah. So true story. So let's see, agriculture. Why agriculture, and how's that gone so far?
There's a huge opportunity in Texas. So Texas is a $20 billion wine industry here. And most people don't realize that because we can't sell our wine out of state because there's not enough grapes. And our partner is the one who actually found us. And he's been, running a huge mechanized vineyard, kind of how California does it, but Texas is way behind in technology, and did it for himself for a long time. He said, I want to fill the supply gap in Texas and I need your help. So we partnered about 3 years ago and started building vineyards from raw land to harvest. That's how we got into. Yeah.
Awesome.
My dad put him on the family ranch. That was the connection. He mentioned it on Whitney Sewell's podcast, another podcast, Amazing Like Yours. And that's how Mason found us, was through my dad telling that story.
That's awesome. That is really cool. So, and you can syndicate anything, which is great. So there's obviously like 2 different investment ideas or asset types. Can you kind of compare and contrast what's the same, what's different?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love multifamily. I love all the asset classes. I think there's so many great characteristics for each of them and benefits. And it's good to have diversification, I think, within the CRE space. So with the vineyards, it's a longer term investment, meaning it cash flows for 40 years. And I say that and people are like, what? So it's got 100% return by year 7, but then it just keeps going. And so investors participate in harvest for multiple decades. So a lot of them that are coming in are, looking for that passive income for many years. The lending is definitely different in that space. We're doing development loans that are, through ag banks in Texas. So they operate more like a credit line, and we're a pretty cash flush project. So we don't have as large of a loan on it. It is recourse debt. That's a big difference. In vineyards. Yeah. So we, people are like, are you invested in this? Like, oh yeah, heavily, about $3.5 million per project, signing on the loans. But we believe in it. So, there's a lot of cool similarities, but some pretty big differentiators too.
Yeah. Did you do any recourse debt in the apartment industry?
No, we did all non-recourse.
Okay. Yeah, I've done a handful, and it's an extra layer of risk, but it's something that if it makes sense, you still do it. But interesting. Well, cool. So more cash flow, it seems like very cash intensive, and recourse debt. That's interesting. Well, cool.
But not for investors, just for us.
Just for you. Yeah, just for you. Obviously, LPs are separated from that. And actually, depending on how you set it up, a lot of the GPs aren't even on the loan. So it's only, it puts the risk on only a couple of people. But
yes.
Well, cool. So next question, and I love listening to the answers to this question. So don't disappoint me. I'm teasing, of course. No pressure at all. But Keeley, what's your why?
I hired a life coach back when I was going through my corporate crisis of, thought I'd made it to where I wanted to be, got to the top of the mountain, and I was like, is this all there is? And he kept asking me this question that really frustrated me. I was like, I hired this guy to just, irritate me. But he kept saying, who are you?
Yeah.
That was his first thing. He's like, Keeley, who are you? And I first responded with all my roles in my life and all the accolades and the things I was proud of and the career that I built. And he kept digging and digging and digging. Who are you? Who are you? Stripping away all these layers. And I realized at my core, from a young age, my grandmother gave me the nickname Twinkle because she said I used to always make everybody laugh. And when I got into corporate, that twinkle was gone because Twinkle was stressed.
You lost your twinkle.
I did. I lost my twinkle. And, my family's even mentioned how different I am now in being a business owner compared to who I was in corporate. And so for me at my core, I'm like, God made me to bring joy to the world, no matter what it is. If it's helping people in business or talking investing, it's like people feel lighter when they leave my presence. And I really feel like that's my gift. And my grandma, called it out when I was, I think, 4 years old. Yeah. So
your twinkle. Yeah. Your why is your twinkle. I like that. Well, I'm glad you got your twinkle back, by the way.
Thank you.
So
Me too.
yeah. So, I don't know what I'd do if I lost my twinkle, but anyway, I don't think my twinkle's as bright as yours. All right. Enough about twinkles.
There is different levels of twinkle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, besides twinkle, let's do a little deeper dive on one of the projects you've done. And it could be one of your agriculture projects, one of your apartments, whatever. Just pick one and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we just finished a huge, we just planted the last vine in one of our vineyard blocks. So that's probably the one that's top of mind for me. We got really cool drone footage, but it's 290 acres of vines. It's about a little over 230,000 individual plants that literally get put in the ground by hand, T-post, then vine shelters tied on. So there's a lot of hand labor to install a vineyard. But that's been a huge accomplishment to kind of build something from the ground up.
290 acres. You said 260,000 individual plants.
230,000. Yeah.
230,000. Wow. A 250,000 individual plants on there. How long does it take to get that all in, and how many people?
That's a great question. It took about 80 people. We had about 60 to 80 people on site, over a period of about 5.5 weeks. And just truckloads delivering vines. Still, it's because you have to do it right. Vines grow for 25 years. So you got to install is like the most important part.
So math in public, that's like 3,000 to 4,000 vines per person. Wow. Wow. Awesome. Now, I don't know a whole lot about this, so I'm asking a lot, maybe dumb questions for people who are in the industry. But how long
Love
does I
it.
mean, how long do the vines live? Are they like hundreds of years? A dozen years? What's the longevity there?
That's a great question. If you go to like Napa Valley, you'll see vines that are 50 years old and super thick stalks. And so
Mhm,
vines are, created to last for a very long time.
mhm,
We're going to be pushing our vines to a higher yield, which means our
mhm,
harvest is bigger every year. So we're going to be averaging about 12 tons of grapes
mhm.
per acre. And so those vines are probably going to get
Nice.
tired around years 23. So that's why
Mhm,
we've got a contingency fund that we pull profits from harvest every year for the replant.
mhm.
So as they start getting
Okay.
tired and yields drop, we replant the vineyard. But
Okay.
23 to 25 years.
Awesome. Now, another question. This is fascinating, by the way. Are they all the same types of grapes, or do you have different varieties?
All kinds of varieties, like grapes
Mhm.
that I'd never even really heard of until I got into this business.
Yeah.
A lot of reds. So,
Okay.
there's certain grapes that do not do well. Texas is hot, so
Mhm.
hot, especially right now.
Yeah.
Where we grow is very, very dry. So we grow a lot of
Okay.
varietals that do well in Texas heat. We do have
Mhm.
some whites, but we usually have about 12 to 13 different varietals on each vineyard block.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I only know two types of grapes. The greenish, whitish ones, and the reddish ones. So
Yes.
yeah. And then my dad had some purplish ones. Planted
Yes.
out outside of our house when I was growing up. So well, that's awesome.
Love it.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Now, with the vineyards, I know one of the big benefits on multifamily is the depreciation. Are the
Mhm.
vines depreciable, or like
Yes.
anything that they are?
Isn't that cool? Yeah, we
Yeah.
run cost seg on it. So we just
Okay.
hired a very specialized firm. One of our
Mhm,
investors is used to be our CPA for all of our multifamily stuff, and she's invested in like 18 syndications as an LP. She
mhm.
knows the tax game. So she was
Yeah.
like, I found you a specialist. You got to talk to these guys. So this firm does cost seg for Napa Valley and Willamette
Mhm.
Valley, big vineyards. And so we
Yeah.
brought them on to run cost seg, and you can depreciate the vines, the steel, all the
Mhm.
equipment. You can even depreciate the aquifer that the land sits on top of. Because most people are like, you
Oh,
can't
really?
depreciate land. Yeah, but you can appreciate the aquifer that's underneath it, which is pretty cool.
Wow. Hmm. Now, interesting. Yeah. So I've actually done a little bit of reading on aquifers lately. Completely coincidental, but my house sits on the second largest aquifer in the United States, and the largest one is in Texas. But anyway, for people who don't know what that is, it's basically underground water. So porous rock, water going through there. So you can depreciate the aquifer. How long over? What's the depreciation period on that? Do you know?
We usually run it over 10 years, even though the
Okay.
vineyard is a 23 to 25 year
Okay.
run of the
Yeah.
vines.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. Well, that's absolutely fascinating. So you still pass, tax benefits on to your investors. And you say it's much more of a cash flow play than an appreciation play. I'm sure there's some appreciation with the land itself. Mhm,
It's just like multifamily. You do a refinance or some sort of a capital event to try to pull
mhm.
money out
Yeah.
for your investors if you're in a good interest rate environment. So
Yep.
we do have a refi in there at year 8 and
Mhm.
to pull out a bunch of money. So it's a 3 to 4x over 10 years because of the
Okay.
refi. But if we
All
don't
right.
refi, we're in, who knows, we're in a 10% interest rate environment. It'll still
Yeah.
cash flow 20% a year. So we're
Okay.
not dependent on it, but we'd love
Mhm.
to do it to pull some money out.
Oh yeah. 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 Did you say you're getting 10% interest rates on these loans?
So our pro forma is 8% for the refi. So if we're
Okay.
anywhere below 8%, yeah, our loans are right around 5.5%, and they operate like a credit line. We
Mhm.
don't pay interest unless we pull from it. And we usually don't
Okay.
pull from it until 16 to 18 months in.
Okay.
So, and we don't finance a
Cool.
whole lot. It's a $9 million
Mhm.
project. We finance about 3.5 million. So
Mhm.
we're not as stressed as some of the other projects, that are experiencing these
Okay.
crazy swings lately.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, very, very interesting. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that very much. Last question coming up. Ready? What's
Yes.
next for you?
I love that.
Mhm,
The vineyards it's big on the horizon for us because we're installing about one vineyard block per year. And
mhm.
next for me is selling grapes and making sure that our grapes are sold to all the wineries in Texas. And
Yeah.
we'll be the biggest vineyard operator in the state and
Mhm.
control more than half of the wine grape supply in about 3 years. So we
All right.
got a lot of infrastructure to build and a lot of relationships to build. So I'll be doing this
Awesome.
for a long time.
Do you guys think you're ever going to go? I assume vertical for the grape industry is making wine and other grape products. Do you ever plan on doing that, or are you guys just going to grow the grapes?
I love that question. The money,
Yeah.
the real money is made in the growing and harvesting of grapes.
Mhm.
However, we are looking at getting into the second step of the supply chain, which is custom crush facilities,
Mhm.
because it's another great income stream. And a lot of
Mhm.
wineries in Texas can't afford a crush facility. So
Mhm.
we'll harvest the grapes, send them to our own crush facility, crush them, and get the juice to the wineries. And it's another piece of income.
Awesome. Awesome. Are you going to have people come and stomp on your grapes for you?
Investors have asked, they're like, can we ride the tractor and can we stomp grapes? And we're like, yes, and yes. Come on out.
Yes and yes. Awesome. Awesome. I'm there. I'll be there next week.
I would love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're going to switch gears a little and bring Naji on. So Naji, how's it going?
Going pretty good, man. I'm enjoying this conversation too.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know what? I've had a lot of really good conversations with Keeley. If you ever see her in person, just go talk with her,
It's that twinkle.
it's the twinkle.
Yep.
Exactly. I didn't know what it was until today, but it's the twinkle. But I think we're going to call this episode Twinkle Twinkle. I was going to say Little Kelley, but I don't know.
Star.
The video doesn't
Yeah.
work there. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Now you tell us a little bit about yourself.
So born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. My professional background is in IT services, and was doing that in corporate. And similar to like Keeley, like I only for a few years into corporate, but for me it was because I was in my early 20s and talking to management, they weren't really supportive of helping me figure out what was like the next step or next progression in IT. Offered a couple of different proposal ideas. They shot those down. I said, not a problem. I'll go figure it out myself. And that's for me why I decided I wanted to go into the Navy. I felt like that was a great place where I can get challenged in multiple areas and learn a lot of stuff that I was looking for. So ended up doing that, went into the reserves, doing logistics because I felt logistics, business, which I knew business was my passion at a young age. I just didn't know what direction to kind of take it in.
Yeah.
So ended up going the reserve route, did the reserves for 8 years. While I was overseas in Bahrain, for me, Twitter was a great avenue to reach out, connect with people, connect with few folks in California with the whole technology, tech scene.
Yeah.
And for me, eventually got to Austin, Texas. So for me, it was just getting into the tech space, finding a lane into business, working on a couple of businesses myself, getting that experience, connections, taking some L's, learning opportunities, right? And now found myself back into Cleveland, moved back here in 2019, still doing IT on the weekends in a data center, brand new environment, right? But got my weekdays free. So now I focus on building a real estate company.
I like that. Yeah. So you work weekends right now. I mean, that's like the perfect job. I mean,
That's right.
obviously, yeah. Anybody who's working and building a multifamily business essentially has 2 full-time jobs. But man, it sure is nice to have weekdays free. I had the opposite. Where you have weekends free, and of course, none of the brokers or property managers or anybody else at work those days. So how convenient. I hope that's working well for you.
It is so far so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And with how you talked about, loving business and sounds like your journey's been very entrepreneurial. I think this is a perfect place for you. So
I'm finding it out. And that was one of the things I would say, like the stuff I was doing in business, even with a few years in on the real estate side, it's actually helped me be better at business. So that to me was very interesting. And just looking at either properties, right, different asset classes, but the financials and all the other stuff that comes with it. For me, it just clicked easier in understanding a lot of the things and nuances that these are basically business fundamentals. But through real estate, it just makes it a little bit more digestible, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked a lot. How did your military service help you, or what lessons from your military service do you bring to multifamily?
For me, first and foremost, is being able to travel. So that global exposure to different people, different cultures, learning about different things, that curiosity, and being able to really run with that. But for me, every time I've talked to someone that doesn't look like myself, it doesn't come from my background, I've learned, I've grown as like a human. So I really appreciate that and love that from a sense of connecting with people, right? Learning from other folks' walk of life. So being able to kind of be a sponge, and then I'll actually apply that from either building relationships with people, right? Understanding the financial side of it, but also building that trust in the relationship with somebody, and then being able to kind of like articulate, communicate, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going after, what we're building, and then being able to kind of invite people on the ride. That has been extremely valuable for me. And then also, understanding how to kind of move a little tactically and strategically and how you execute.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Now you mentioned Bahrain. Where else in the world have you been?
South Korea, NATO, in Brussels, over in Washington State here in the States, work with the sub community, DLA, which is like Civilian Land Agency, and VA, and then Hawaii, and then Sicily. I love Sicily when I was out with the aviation group.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, when I was,
I cannot forget to say I was also on a foreign ship during RIMPAC. So I was on an Indian warship. So that was also
that's cool.
Reserve side, right? You don't get the opportunity to actually go out and operate at sea, but especially being in the Navy. But that was a lifetime type of experience, being on a foreign vessel, being out at sea, and I was peaceful as it was, and experiencing that during, Hawaii area. But then also interacting, like I said, from a different culture. And ironically, I'm working with a firm it's an Indian-based firm. So for me, it's just like that connection being established. Like I have a little bit of a rapport with that community and culture.
I've been on foreign ships, just never at sea. In port. You get the tour or whatever, but that's pretty interesting. So that's cool. I like that. Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's switch to back to apartment related topics. But thanks for sharing all that, by the way. So last question before we get into your questions, and that's, what is your big burning why?
Yeah, for me it's been a journey, and kind of, for me it's faith driven, but it's been a journey and kind of really finding that out for myself. And when the murder of George Floyd happened, for me, it was just like a hopeless feeling. I used to live in Austin, Texas for almost 5 years, moved back to Cleveland in 2019. So during that period of transition, I thought I was going to be going overseas for a DoD contract right before COVID hit. And that situation, I still could have went, but I was putting my life in jeopardy. I didn't feel safe because, people were still trying to figure things out. I wasn't going to risk my life for money. So with that falling through, the plan always was to actually get into real estate. It was to leverage that tax-free income, invest in real estate, and have more of a solid financial foundation. So when I was in Austin, I was like, to me, juggling 3 lives: the military, my business, doing a media company back then, and then the IT stuff I was doing during the day. So when I came back to Cleveland, that situation happened. I'm asking myself these questions, like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? I know it has something to do with business, but what exactly? So over probably like a good 6 to 8 months, asking myself questions, reading books and whatnot. So for me, especially now at this point, I have some way more clarity. And I believe for me, it's helping guys, people through entrepreneurship, and really being, I think from a real estate perspective, that asset or that asset class, I'm looking at real estate as that vehicle to help people. And multifamily to me is most interesting because I have a duplex, so I'm doing on a micro scale, but when you have multiple doors within that one piece of property, how does that piece of property help people get into home ownership? How do you help teach them financial literacy? So I see that as a great way to help people through real estate, educate, right? But then even a pathway in a sense of either ownership or, the whole wealth generation standpoint. Like it's a way for you to start and build on top of that.
Yeah. I love it. There's so many different ways to help so many different people in this industry. And, when I was, we have a business coach, and he was helping us kind of settle foundation. And he asked, what's your purpose? What is it that you guys, why do you exist? And the thing that we ended up coming up with was, helping people live better lives. That applies to, everybody we touch, which is really awesome. I think it is anyway. But anyway, well, thanks for sharing that as well. And now we come to my favorite part of the show. Naji, we got Keeley on the line. What do you want to ask her?
Well, I got a lot of questions, and especially on the vineyard standpoint. Like I know land is an asset class that I don't think always gets talked as much with multifamily, right, and commercial. So even with some of the questions that Brian was asking, with the one, what was obviously the network that you had, right, with the gentleman, that the developer, to reach out to you guys. What was it for you that was most interesting about land and then vineyards, and actually like working the land in the sense of the business and the real estate that comes with that?
I love that question. I looked at it because I remember when my dad pitched it to me the first time, and he always gives me like an investment briefing. He'll put some on a Word doc, and he's like, can we raise capital for this? And so I go through it and read through it. And I was like, I called him. I'm like, is this like, it sounds too good to be true. Like this whole, passive income for generations. Cause it was hard. I love multifamily, and I love the ability, the velocity of money there. But I also know that we have investors that have constantly asking me, where do I put this money? I thought it was a 6-year hold and, we got the money back in 2.5 years. Now what? And looking for that, consistent income stream. And I loved the aspect of it that it was building a legacy in Texas because it had never been done before, while helping families build a legacy for their generations to come. So I saw that tie in there. And I love land. I'm a 7th generation Texan. I'm one of those obnoxious Texans you probably met when you were in Austin, Naji. I just love this state, right? Yeah. And I just love Texas. So I think it was a combination of those things, but the legacy was a big part of it.
It's interesting, right? Especially Brian, like you put us together, but not knowing, I don't think to a certain extent, obviously I was in Austin or Texas, but so as I've been, I'm also involved with ULI, Urban Land Institute in Cleveland. And one of the conversations I've had with someone else is about land, but like how you can leverage land, whether it's developing the land itself or have like an option on the contract or option on the land to actually, sell it to someone else. So the fact that you guys are doing what you're doing from a vineyard with grapes, and then now when you look at like ag tech and all the stuff that's going on from vertical farming, soybeans, I know is a huge thing. Peppers, I was just researching last night. I'm like, I love black pepper. I'm just wondering like some of the medical properties behind it, because I'm like cholesterol, right, with salt and whatnot. So is there any other things like when you guys dug in from the grape standpoint, the industry, anything else that you guys have looked at, other products or other sources that will be either complementary to what you guys are already doing, or from a market standpoint, you got to see there's an interesting opportunity here as well too?
That's a great question. We narrowed in on grapes mostly because my dad had seen it, with my brother-in-law, with his family. They put 30 acres on their ranch and it had great cash flow, right? It makes the land payment for the personal property. So we saw that aspect of it. And that's why we went in, we're like, okay, you plant them once, it's not an annual crop. And I think that's why wine grapes are such a profitable crop, is because what the end product is, the demand for it, it's recession proof. People, because we're not doing ultra premium wine, we're selling, table wine. And people do not cut alcohol out of their budget. Times are tough. So
I've heard people say, and I don't drink alcohol, and I'm sure it's true, but when times are tough, people drink more alcohol. And when times are good, people drink more alcohol. So there you go.
It's a good little niche. There's a really cool, because you asked this question about just ag and are there other kind of branches. One of our partners, their name is Harvest Returns. They actually office like across the street over here. And they are a ag funding platform. So they've raised $1 million for us every time we do a vineyard. But you go and you get on their website and become a member, and you will see the coolest stuff in the ag industry and all the different investments that are out there. It'll give you a better idea of how to maximize land. We also looked at some land flips in Montana and Wyoming, and purchasing land. A lot of people are moving there and looking for recreational land. So
I think I've seen something around, I think it was like Yellow Springs, where it talked about like campgrounds as well too. So that's interesting, because I think for me that was like the norm in the sense of the land and how you can build something on it from a physical location to sell or rent. But when you're actually dealing with product that could help feed, right, or nourish people, that to me it seems like a lot more work or a lot more labor intensive, but the payoff in the sense of now understanding more about the generational, not only money involved, but then from the folks that are kind of working on land as well too, you're employing people, right, long term as well. So what was that like for you guys in the sense of finding the right team internally to put the overall fund together, and then also with finding folks actually work the land? How did you guys go about vetting people and finding the right folks that had that experience based on what the business kind of calls for?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So when the two families that are involved, so it's like the Hubbard family, right? My dad and I, and then the Moreland family, and it's Mason, his brother Matt, and their dad. So I like that we've got kind of the two generations that are, building this. And Mason has 4 daughters that he plans on bringing into the business. But for us, we're looking at it from a leadership perspective, and we had operations, like people on site running tractors, right? Your on-site crews. Like, we need leadership from a higher level, because Mason and I need to be out there selling grapes and schmoozing with the wineries, right? But we need somebody that's overseeing all these vineyard blocks on a day-to-day management of making sure that these vines are taken care of. So we spent a lot of time, and this is true when I was in corporate hiring salespeople. I had this mantra: hire slow, fire fast. Don't rush a new hire. And we took so much time to find a hire. And we brought a guy in from Paso Robles, California, who managed 6,000 acres out there and was tired of living in California, wanted to be in Texas. I mean, he's like a unicorn. I'm like, how did we find you? I mean, he's got a Fu Manchu. I'm like, you're meant to be in Texas. He's got a dog named Cooter. I'm like, you're a Texan, right? This is where you belong. So we brought him in as director of vineyard operations, and he has just so much experience. So that was a really crucial hire for us. And then there's a lot of labor in the install of a vineyard, but after that, we can run 350 acres with just 3 people and big tractors. But in the beginning, when we're installing, we've got, 80 people out there. There's a very large Hispanic Mennonite community that, they're out there, their kids are out there planting vines. Like, it's just a real families, right? That's what this whole thing was about, is families. So we're lucky that there's a big population out there that loves to farm. And that's where we pull a lot of our day labor from.
Yeah, I do have to say, Keeley, that, a guy in California wanting to move to Texas is not a unicorn today. That's like everybody in California right now. But the rest of it, I'll believe the rest of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
well, moving to like Lubbock. So he's moving outside of Lubbock, which is like farmland. So he's coming from Paso Robles. To me, I was like, are you sure? Like, we really need you out here, but are you sure?
It's like the stars are aligning for you, is what that sounds like, though. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
And another question, kind of take it back for you career wise. And this is something I kind of mentioned to Brian, and we talked about from a mental standpoint, being involved in real, or before and after, right, being involved in real estate. How has your mentality changed coming from corporate or leaving corporate, going into real estate? And how has it kind of evolved as you have done deals and the relationships that you've cultivated and built in real estate?
Yeah. I didn't have a network when I was in corporate. You kind of become a big deal in your own world. And I remember when I quit, and everybody thought I was crazy for leaving. And, and at that point, I'm going out, the real estate business is starting, but that's the wealth play. I got to build income, kind of like you and your skill set in IT. I'm like, I got to go coach people, right? In sales. What hit me so hard that I didn't realize was going to happen is people didn't know who I was. And it's like, yeah, you want to come coach our sales teams. You say you're so amazing, but like, where's the proof of it? And I'm like, God, that's so embarrassing. You're right. There's no proof of it other than who I was at this company that nobody knew about. And so for me, it was, there is a social media expert that I heard speak at a conference, and she was like, if you want people to know you're the expert, you have to show them over and over and over again. And so it was scary putting myself out there. And, when you're behind a company and the company is the front person, you're building somebody else's company and they're in the spotlight. It's very different than all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm the guide, follow me. And that part, I think, is a muscle that I have really exercised a lot and become a lot less fearful of. I do have what it takes. I can be the front person. I can sell myself. Yes, I can make a huge impact, because we all deal with imposter syndrome to every day, right? To different levels, every time you're climbing to new levels in your business. But I hid for a while when I left corporate, and I tried to start building somebody else's business. And it's no surprise that completely fell apart and leveled me financially. And I feel like that was God saying, like, girl, I told you, like, get out there and put yourself out there. Stop trying to build somebody else's business. And so that was a hard lesson for me, but it built resilience, and I trust myself now that I do have what it takes and I can help a lot of people. And I'm being selfish if I don't share that message.
Yeah. And with me kind of going out on my own, leaving a partnership, building something of my own, I had a lot of the same feelings, and a lot of the same similar struggles, struggled with okay, now I'm the front person. It's almost like I went from being super confident as part of a team to now I'm all by myself. And I had to go back to the same question you started with, Keeley. Who am I? Who am I really? So, but yeah, awesome. I think we all go through some of the similar things. Go ahead, Naji. Sorry.
Definitely. And, obviously, right, I'm coming from it from a different lens. So for me, it's not a lot of people that look like me in the commercial real estate side, and especially with either leading the company, right, or even on the development side. And with my journey having to be, or being more entrepreneurial and kind of having to build things from the ground up, I know that's a skill set that I have. But now as you're building this company, right, I got to get out, have to build relationships with people. There's a lot of stuff I have to learn and implement. but the team. So that was something that in Austin, actually in the military, right? Ironically, being a part of a team, but I didn't have a lot of opportunities to kind of leading the teams into like later in my career. But when I was in Austin, I built a media platform. So it got up to about 8 members. I still didn't figure out the business model, as quickly as I should have. And that was a learned lesson. But that ability to have people in the room and the vision, right? What we're trying to build towards, what we're trying to do, I was able to at least experience it. So now with, legal, CPA, right? Things that you have to have the right structure in your team and building, that's been something I've had to learn and kind of still learning as I'm focused on generating the revenue for the company. So for you, how have you navigated that? Or you and your team and like the internal team, right? The legal side of it with the multifamily and building up to a point where there's some level of sustainability, right? But now you can move into the vineyard space, right? Now you can move into another asset class. What was that process for you in putting that right team together? But then the things that you guys need to do from the fundamental stuff that you guys are actually building a scalable business.
Yeah. It's not rushing it. I think, being aligned from a values perspective is crucial, and really getting to know like our attorney, right? One member of our team, really getting to know him, having dinner with him and his wife, understanding his values, like who he is as a person. And that builds so much trust between the two of you. Like, I know when I hand this off, like he's got my back, even though he's got hundreds of other clients, he's got my back because I've invested in the relationship. So investing in your team, investing in your employees, if you bring on employees eventually, investing in your relationship with your CPA, with your attorney, I feel like that it's the solid foundation that's required to be able to scale and to not rush the process. I'm somebody that wants everything done yesterday. And this entrepreneurship journey has been such an exercise in patience and like, Keeley, like, what are these deadlines? My coach asked me that, my business coach. She was like, where do these crazy, insane deadlines come from? And I was like, I'm a nut job, right? They came from me. And she was like, what's the rush? Like, why are you putting all of these? And it's these marks that I'm successful when I reach this point, when this happens. And this is such a people business that you can't force it. You gotta invest in your relationships, get to know people. Everything comes together. And I believe that everything is always working in my favor, always, that I've got to just slow down and enjoy the ride. Because what's the point of leaving? Like, I can go back to corporate if I want to have an eye twitch. I might as well enjoy the ride and really, get to know my people where we feel like we're one unit moving forward. And I think you have a huge edge just being in the military, both of you. Thank you for your service, by the way. Love our military. Having been in the military and the discipline and the resilience and the perseverance and working as a team, it's a huge leg up starting out.
And Naji, to add my 2 cents, I think, what I was thinking when you were asking that question is the answer is one piece at a time. There's so many different people that are supporting you. You build it one piece at a time. And, when I went through it the first time, with a different set of partners, it was the same thing. It's like, okay, who do I need right now? Who do I need next? And that's how I went about building the team and, resetting is, being the guy in charge. I'm doing the exact same thing in a different location right now, so, I'm in a WeWork right now because the guy who's doing the syndication work, the attorney who's doing the syndication work on our, first acquisition said, hey, I'm going to this thing in the morning. You want to come with me? I'm like, it's a 3-hour drive, but yeah, I do, because it's the relationships that matter, but you build it one piece at a time. And I am not saying anything new that Keeley hasn't already said, but you build the relationships with them. It's a relationship game, one piece at a time. And Keeley, I also love how you said your values have to align as well. That's something that's also, when you really strip it down, I think that's more important than skill set or anything else.
Amen to that.
So, I also noticed, Keeley, on your guys' website, like not only family, right? We've kind of talked about like legacy. So what was it for you guys in regards to like having a conversation about building legacy and kind of like what that looks like for you and you guys' family? How did you guys, from an intentional standpoint, kind of think, what were some of those, like, I guess, core pieces of being thoughtful about that? And then I guess the process of implementing it, how's it kind of been beneficial to you guys in the sense of like the reward, right? Being in a position to be able to do that and then kind of help people. Like, what has that exchange been like for you guys?
The desire to give back to my parents is where I came up with the legacy. A lot of times people think your parents should be, passing off money to you. They sacrificed so much for me to get to where I'm at. Dad went through a bankruptcy when I was a kid, and they gave up so much of their life to help me be who I am today. So for me, it was kind of the reverse legacy. Like, let me get back to my parents. That'll then impact my siblings, my nephews, and everybody else after that.
I like it. Well, we are now officially out of time. That was a perfect answer, by the way. Perfect length too, so we are officially out of time. So one last question for each of you. Keeley, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Find me on social media. I'm on most platforms, or just go to investinvines.com.
Invest in Vines. Nobody else took that domain?
No,
Man,
I'm a domain
lucky.
hoarder. I buy a lot of them.
Oh, okay. Cool. And Naji, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, same. Twitter, LinkedIn is best for me. Naji H, Kelley, Kelley, and then nhkcompanies.com.
Awesome. All right. And if anybody listening interested in contacting any of these two, you know where to go. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks a lot, guys, for coming on the show. I had a great time. Hope you guys did too.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting
Thank you,
me.
Brian.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans, yet, you are missing out. So get yourself 30 days free by clicking the link below in the description, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.